Okay, now we're being recorded, and welcome everyone to today's presentation of Shabby Chic Landscapes. And here again is my slide with the camera, which is really only for me to remind me to put the recording back on. Okay, and to remind you, we're being recorded as well. I am Lilly Browning. I work for Hernando County Utilities with water conservation. And today we're going to be discussing Shabby Chic landscapes, beautiful landscapes on a budget. Okay, let me make sure we don't have anyone else waiting in the waiting room for a second here. Julie wants in. Okay. All right, Shabby Chic landscapes. As I said, I'm Lilly Browning. Here is my email at the bottom of this slide so that you can email me. That really is the best way to try and reach me. I don't necessarily see the messages on Facebook. There's not a system that bounces in front of me that says, hey, you know, there's a message right here. Maybe I don't have it set up right, I'm not sure. But my email, I'm always going to see my email. In fact, as I said before, my email follows me around. So that is really the best way to reach me. I'm trying to admit everybody. My program that I teach is Florida-friendly landscaping. And here are the 9 principles. And we're going to be covering quite a few of them today, probably all of them in one way or another. Right plant, right place will be highlighted greatly as well. Okay, we're going to start with, since we're talking about shabby landscapes, we're going to start with the shabby, but it's not too shabby, but not too shabby. Let's see, I'm trying to keep track of everyone who wants to come in here as well. The first thing I want you to realize when we are discussing what you want to do with your yard, and I'm sure you've heard the saying before, failing to plan is planning to fail. Well, I just came up with this yesterday. I added one little letter. Failing to plan is planting to fail. So that, you know, makes it very specific for us. Failing to plan is planting to fail. So what am I talking about when I'm discussing that? Let me let Barbara. There we go. Okay, the first thing you want to do is go out in your yard and assess what you have already and what you need. And you can just do this on different pieces of paper, and if I did it, it would be very, very scribbled. But I would know what it meant. I'm not a designer, and I can't make beautiful plans, but I can make it look like what I need it to look like. But if you want to get, you know, really into it, you can get some like tracing paper. So the first level is going to be what already exists. What do you have? Where are the things in your yard? You know, where's the pool? Where's are the utilities? What is this over here a really sunny area? Is this shady? Is this kind of wet and holds moisture? That's the kind of things, you know, that you already have these things. So you're going to make that landscape assessment. Just write it down on paper to help your mind process, you know, what you have going on there. And another thing you can do, let Sarah in, is that you can clear out the riff-raff. Invasive exotic plants for sure. If they're in your yard and you're thinking of making a change, that's the time. Get rid of those. Those are, take up too much of your time and energy. Not only are they, you know, bad for the environment because animals could spread them, or they spread themselves and get into natural areas and displace our native plants. Therefore, then the native animals don't have anything to feed on. So it's a good time to get rid of invasive exotic plants. And we have whole other classes on that. You can look through my videos. There's seductive invaders. If you look that one up, that one is specifically a class on the types of invasive exotic plants people are in love with and don't want to get rid of. But that might not be the only thing you want to consider. If you're thinking of making a change in your yard in general, maybe there's just a plant there that you just spend too much of your time and energy, like this hedge here. You know, maybe you don't want to spend all your time and energy just shearing it all the time because it grows so much, or keeping it under control. Maybe you have underperformers in your yard. And, you know, we all, you know, almost all of us here are, you know, we're female, so we think we need to nurture every single little plant out there, but sometimes we need to toughen up and say, you know, you're here, you're not dead, but you're just not performing well for me. And what I do is I put it on a work plan. What that means is you're not working out over here. I'm going to give you another chance, and I'm going to put you over here, somewhere else in this department. Maybe you'll do better over here. And if you don't, well, then I'm sorry, you know, we just don't have room for you anymore. You just sometimes have to be a little tough, you know, with your plants. Okay, maybe also you're thinking about your view in your yard. Maybe you have a nice view like this top left one that you want to enhance. You want to create your yard so that you see more of that view, or you know, want everything to kind of point towards that view so you can enjoy it more. Or you could have the opposite, in that you have a view that isn't particularly pleasant to you. Now this view of the neighbors isn't bad. I mean, that could be a lot worse, but maybe you don't want to see their backyards, or you know, maybe you have another issue with, you know, those neighbors there that you want to provide some screening. So could go two different ways there. Also, you want to check out the soil in your yard. Not only you can have it tested, and I'll explain how to do that, but just think, is this dry sandy soil? Is this more wet kind of mucky soil? What is it? What kind of soil am I dealing with here? Probably the majority of you are going to be saying dry sandy soil. If you're interested in knowing what your pH is and some of the other nutrient, you know, nutrients in your yard, you can get a soil test. You can still go to the county extension office and ask them for a kit, but they don't do it there. They're going to give you a form and a bag to put it in, so you can mail it off to the University of Florida and have it tested. So if you don't want to make that trip, here is the link to that form. You can also look up UF Soil Lab, find this form. This one is going to be talking about lawns and vegetable gardens, I believe, the particular form for homeowners. And then you mark off what you want. And I believe it's $10 now for pH, lime requirement, as well as some of the other nutrients that are needed. They can't test for nitrogen because nitrogen travels too fast through the soil to be able to test it. But based on everything else, they can give you a nitrogen suggestion. If you do that, a copy of your results will be sent to the county extension office, so you can feel free to call them and talk about it with them as well. What do you want to do in your yard? What is your yard activity plan? What do you got going on there? You know, do you want relaxation areas, entertainment areas, areas for your pets, areas for your kids or grandkids to run around and play? Mark those down. What do I want to happen where? Maybe your yard is just there to be pretty, you know, to provide curb appeal, to enhance the value of your home, and that's perfectly fine too. Or maybe you're also interested in attracting more wildlife, which we're certainly all about that. But just mark down the different areas and what you want going on there. But keep in mind the traffic patterns of your yard. Where do you walk to get to where you're going in your yard on a daily basis? Where do you put, you know, what's the path you take to put the trash cans out? Maybe it's all on cement, you know, and that's fine. But where are the utilities? Where are other people going to have to go? And you don't want to make it difficult for them to reach your air conditioner or, you know, your electric box, cable box, things like that. Keep those things in mind. Then you think about where do the plants go. You can put another piece of tracing paper over your, where you've decided what you already have. And then with taking out what you plan on taking out, and then put the other piece of tracing paper over it and think about where you want to put plants. And that's all you're thinking about is plants, not specific plants yet. Except maybe you'll say over here I want a tree. Over here I want, you know, my butterfly garden. You can be generalized plants like that, and keep in mind, of course, the light and the soil conditions. And maybe there's some areas where the turf won't grow. So think about putting something else there, whether that would be a walking path or some hardscape, a deck, a patio, or just different types of ground covers. Keep the slopes, any kind of slopes you have in your yard in mind, and erosion that might occur there. And of course, you're going to want to plant the plants that have similar needs together. So in your wetter area, you know, you put plants that like wet feet. In your dry area, you put the more drought tolerant type of plants all together. And when I mention trees, tree placement is a thing all unto itself. And here these two graphics are showing you just good ways to place trees for various reasons. Obviously in the front, in the first one, you know, the power lines are there, and we've all seen what can happen to poor trees under power lines that are going to grow too tall. And what's the power lines company's job? It's to keep those power lines safe. They're not arborists. They're not there to create pretty trees. They're there to keep us safe and those power lines safe. So they're just going to cut everything away from those power lines. So it makes more sense to put smaller trees or bushes under the power lines that aren't going to reach them. The other thing that they're showing you, of course, is these two trees kind of devouring the house there. Got too big. That's not curb appeal at all. And if you've listened to other classes of mine, you know, one of my things is I don't like the front door to be hidden. Maybe you do because you want to be hidden from the world. But if you want people to feel comfortable, especially if you're in a deed restricted community, if you want people to feel comfortable with your yard, you know, it's kind of like hiding your eyes from someone. If you don't show your front door, that's kind of how I feel about it. So you don't want your house devoured by the trees. Have a nice tree in front that fits the scale. Also look at the directions on the second one. This is an interesting thing to think about, even here in Florida. Uh-oh, I covered up there we go. Trying to keep track of all of you and see my presentation at the same time. See what's happening here is the north, you know, in the north, they put like a windbreak of trees that's going to protect you from wind and from cold. Maybe here we want to think about, it would be difficult to put a windbreak of trees without, again, devouring the house or getting the power lines for heat purposes. But they do have trees to the west, and I know in the afternoons the sun is pretty heavy in the west. So that, you know, can provide cooling opportunities for your house, but also having it a little open to the south in the winter does warm up your house as well. So these are energy conserving ways of placing trees for your home. Okay, now we can get into plant specifics, and I tell you about this just about every time I talk to you. If you're interested in Florida-friendly plants, there are several ways to go about getting this booklet right here. You can get it in your hand just like I have it, and this is the Florida-Friendly Landscaping Guide to Plant Selection and Landscape Design. Big long title, you notice I have to read it every single time. You can download it at that first link there, so you have it on your computer or your phone. You can go to watermatters.org. That is the Southwest Florida Water Management District. They are nice enough to print these books for us. University of Florida created it. Swiftmud prints it. You can go to watermatters.org. There's a section there. You go under resources for the public, and they've got all kind of cool things, but you can find this book. I think it's on page 2, and fill out a form. And if you are in one of their 16 counties in their district, they'll mail you one of these books. I know it works because I tried it. You can call the county extension office here in Hernando County and pick one up. You can go to the Master Gardener Nursery on Wednesdays, unless you're listening to me, and Saturdays between 8:30 and 11, and they'll be glad to give you one. Now, not everything is all just about this book, though. There's another really cool website, floridayards.org. I encourage you to go there because there are fun things happening on that website. There's a plant database where you can put in, I'm looking for natives for dry areas, and then it will pop up with a list of, you know, suggested plants for you. There's also an interactive yard on that, an interactive Florida-friendly yard on that website. So again, that one's pretty simple, floridayards.org, and that would be a great place to go to find out what type of plants would work in your yard. Then once you've made a decision on plants, then you go to wherever you're going to go to get these plants. And when you're at the nursery, this is a very, very important part of this step. You want to check for vigor, make sure they're healthy looking, pull them out of the pots a little, make sure they have nice white roots that are not root bound. You don't want too many roots coming out of the bottom, things like that. This says no weeds. Sometimes that's pretty difficult for a nursery, but as little weeds, enough so that you can pull them out and get rid of them, and they're not going to be a problem for you. Look under those leaves, look for bugs and aphids. If you're looking at trees, they should have one trunk, one central leader that's going to make a strong tree. Now this one's hard for us. You know that clearance rack I'm talking about that has the $2 dead plants on it. And we want to take those plants home and love them and hug them and make them better. And we all have a story where that worked out for us. But a lot of times it does not work out. And especially now that we're so aware of how germs and things, unpleasant things can spread, think of that in the plant world at all. And is that something, if they do have a problem more than just being neglected, that you want to bring home to your other plants? So think of that as well. Also, make sure you're buying for our area and in the right season. And I know you're thinking, why would the plants be there if they weren't in our area or for the correct season? Well, don't rely on necessarily the big box stores. Educate yourself A lot of times they have buyers who buy for a, southeastern region. May or may not, be for our zone or and if it sells well, of course, they're just going to keep selling it, right? Or in the right season. So just educate yourself about those things as well. Also, while you're at the store, we encourage you to avoid cypress mulch. It won't hurt your yard. It's an ethical situation where it's not a sustainable Florida-friendly practice. Unless you know for sure that cypress mulch was a byproduct of the lumber industry. And the only way I know you're going to do that is, if you head on 50 and go to Terrytown on the other side of 301, I think it's in Sumter County, there's a lumber mill there, that uses cypress, and they have large piles of cypress mulch. Then it's okay. It's, recycling, it's a byproduct. But generally the industry, they just go in, get these young cypress trees, because there's no old hardwood cypress trees left, and they cut them down specifically and immediately to shred them down to be mulch for us. And that is not a sustainable Florida-friendly practice that we would like to encourage. We'd like you to get, pine, eucalyptus, melaleuca, things like that are, well, the melaleuca is an invasive exotic we would like to get rid of, and the pine and the eucalyptus can grow quickly, and there are plantations, and sustain itself. You want to avoid any kind of weed and feed insecticide problems. They are problems. Products. That's a whole other discussion, but just in Florida, those are different activities that should happen at different times. And I've known lots of people who have killed their whole lawns, trying to use these things. And in Florida-friendly landscaping, we don't recommend broadcast treating any problem, especially with insecticide. If you have a major problem and you have determined, yes, it's a real problem, maybe it's a fire ant mound or something, treat that area. You don't need to broadcast and treat your entire yard, because then you're going to kill every living insect there, and most of them are probably your allies and your friends. If you believe you do have a problem that does need treated, please consult Dr. Lester at the County Extension Office or a volunteer master gardener, so that you find out what it is, find out if it really is a problem, and that you get the right product to treat the right problem. An insecticide is not going to kill mites. You need a miticide for that. It's all a very complicated system, and you're just throwing chemicals out there that won't work, and that's not good for the environment. Except for fire ant killer, I really don't use anything at all. I just cut those pieces off and throw them away. Now, you got your plants. You feel you've made the right decision about the plants, and you're going to put them in the right places. So you're bringing it all back home. The first thing you want to, well, second thing. First thing is make sure they're going in the right place. If they're a sun-loving plant, put them in the sun. If they're shade, put them in the shade. If they need wet feet, put them in your wet areas. If you don't have any wet areas, make sure you got all, plants that like it dry. So now you've decided where they go in your yard. Here's another absolutely critical juncture. Don't bury them. You're planting them, you're not burying them. Plant them high. I keep saying this for a reason, and if you get tired of hearing me say it and you decide, well, I'm going to go listen to Pasco County now because Lilly just keeps saying the same thing, Frank in Pasco is going to tell you the same thing. Go look, he's got great videos. He's a great teacher. He even has one where he demonstrates how to plant like I do, and guess what? We're demonstrating the same way. Gotta plant it high. That the soil ball, well, what he mentions, which I forgot to, is you want to pull those roots out and butterfly them a little bit. But you want that soil ball to be 2.5 times as wide, but absolutely no deeper than that soil ball. You want maybe an inch or so of it actually above the soil line when you plant it. And Frank mentions building a little moat around it, outside of it, to hold the water in. And what you do, since you're not filling all the dirt that you dug out, because the soil ball takes up a good chunk of it, and you don't just use all that dirt to bury that plant. No, leave that soil ball out a little bit. Make sure the flare, the bottom of the plant, is out if it's a tree or a shrub. You use that extra dirt to create a little berm around it to hold the water in. So please, that's very, very important to do. You want to look, before you even get that far, look up, down, and around. You know, what are we planting? Are there power lines above me? Am I too close to the house? If you're doing a lot of planting, you may want to call 811 so they can come out and see what kind of wires are underground, so you don't make the whole neighborhood mad at you when they can't watch their cable, or it could be dangerous for you as well. And keep watering it until it's established. That's hard to say how long that is. It really depends on your soil and your conditions. But for a lot of trees and shrubs, I would say almost all of them, they don't want to be on the same irrigation as your lawn. They don't need that much water. And, you know, so many people turn on their irrigation systems once a week because they're all very good citizens and obey the rules. They only do it once a week, I know. But the shrubs and the trees are getting the same irrigation and they don't want it. And you are actually shortening their lives so that 10, 12 years down the line, you're like, why are my shrubs dying? Because they never wanted to be on the irrigation system. It may be shorter, it might even be like 8 years. They would have lived longer if you'd let them survive on natural rainfall. So cap off the irrigation to them. Now mulch, I know you're thinking of planting, you're thinking of mulch. So we want to use mulch responsibly. Mulch is going to be fantastic in a shabby chic yard, because as I always say, mulch covers a multitude of sins. You can really, you know, neaten the place up and make it look a lot better just by putting mulch down. But be careful with that mulch. You only want to use a 2 to 3 inch layer. You don't want to do that volcano mulching that we've seen done. That's the same thing as burying the plant too low. And I did say burying, not planting. You'll get the same exact response from the plant, which the roots try to grow the wrong way to get oxygen, and you have a very weak plant that never put out its root system where it's supposed to go. And once you get the mulch down, pull it away from the root system or from the trunks of the plants, because that's another thing. You don't want it up against it where it might hold the moisture up against the trunks and invite fungal issues there as well. Here's some ideas that we get in our mind regarding our landscape that I call, it's a false economy. We think we're saving money, but in the long run, it's going to cost us more money. So not hiring a certified arborist for your trees is one big one. If you're going to have your trees taken down or pruned, or, you know, have someone come and evaluate them during storm season, which is now, you know, just hiring, you know, Jack who knocked on your door could be a pretty dangerous thing to do. If you look up the International Society of Arboriculture, you can Google that. It's also called ISA, but there are other things that are ISA. So you're going to have to write out International Society of Arboriculture. You'll find their website. And even though it's an international society, they have a search engine on it or you can put in your zip code or your town, and it'll bring up all the certified arborists in our area. And I think they're really only about 6. And then make your choice from there. They know what they're doing. They know how to take care of those trees. It will save you money in the long run. So that's why I say to use a certified arborist. Getting free mulch, I'm all about free. And sometimes getting free mulch will work out great for you, like from the electric companies that are taking the trees away from the power lines, or other situations like that, or even from the landfill. But I want you to be careful, because all they're doing is whatever they have, they're shredding it down. So there could be invasive vines, there could be invasive trees. It's all mixed together. So unless you're going to compost it a long time and make sure the heat really kills all those seeds, you want to be careful with that free mulch option, or you're going to end up with more work and more problems and more money spent when you have invasive plants all over your yard. Mowing the lawn low, people think, and this would be a false economy of their time, that if I mow it low, I like it better, mowed low. That's what a lot of people think. Also, I won't have to mow it as often. Mowing your St. Augustine, Floritan, or your Bahia grass yard, it's not good for your Bahia grass. It will kill your St. Augustine. Mowing it too low. It will invite lots of other problems that lawn is prone to, such as take all root rot. Then you have a huge expense, or replacing the lawn is certainly a huge expense. You want to mow, you want to keep those blades 3 to 4 inches. And we have whole classes on that, but I'm just going to leave it right there. And I mentioned broadcast killing every insect in your yard. You think you just want to kill it all and not have any problems, then you don't have any allies helping you out. And you've killed off the diversity in your yard. In the long run, it's going to cost you more money. Now, we all love freebie plants. And if it's someone you know and trust who's giving you a Florida-friendly plant or a native plant, that's fine. But if they just pulled something else out of their yard, or growing somewhere near their yard, and said, this is just great, I mean, I didn't even plant it and it grows like crazy in my yard, those are danger words and could be invasive exotic plants, and then you invited them into your yard and you have a huge problem in a very short time. So be careful of all those false economies. Okay, here's some other money-saving tips while we're talking about the not so shabby portion of this presentation. Don't overwater. Of course, if you're on a municipal system like Hernando County Utilities, the more you water, the more you're going to pay. Even if you're on a well like me, you're paying more in electricity. But also, we're all paying in the long run. I consider the aquifer, where we keep our water, it's like a piggy bank. It's the savings account of our water. And if we keep withdrawing from it, and more of us are moving here and withdrawing from it more than we need to, and not enough is getting put in, then we're at a deficit of water, just like you would be with money. Also, your lawns will suffer if they're overwatered, and then you'll be spending more money trying to fix them. The same thing with over fertilizing them. Those lawn clippings that you mow, just let them go. That's the best thing to do. They're not going to cause thatch. Overwatering can cause thatch. Lawn clippings will not. In fact, they're going to help you fertilize. You can skip one fertilization a year if you always let your lawn clippings, just let them go in the lawn. Especially if you have a mulching mower, they're going to be just fine. If you don't want to do that, then please don't pay to throw them away. Does that even make sense at all? No, you can use them. When you think about it, your lawn, you're growing a crop that you harvest when you mow it, then you pay someone else to take it away. put it in your compost bin. Or like my neighbor kind of creates a berm out of it to stop the water from the road coming into his yard. And over the years, grass actually started growing on his berm of grass. So, you know, he literally landscaped with it. Do something that will give back to nature with it. And that he just, like I said, he recycled yard waste. You can use pine needles for mulch, leaves for mulch. You got all kind of free things that'll help you out there. And composting, it's a big thing, big way to recycle yard waste and help you save money. And installing a rain barrel, that will help you not to have, you know, use the water out of your system to water your landscape plants. And the rain is generally free, so it'll save you money pretty quickly. Now we'll talk about the chic. How are we going to make this all? We take all these money-saving ideas that we're going to make it pretty. So we're going to talk about design. Just some basic design principles that, I mean, I'm not a designer either. So these are going to be very, very basic, just to get us in mind, you know, help you know what will look nice. Keeping in mind, though, that of course beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and it's your yard, so do what you want. But you might want these suggestions to help you if you can't just quite get it in your mind. So here we have the color wheel. I think we learned about this, what, in 3rd grade or so? There are 3 primary colors, red, yellow, and blue. And we'll discuss how you can put the color wheel to work in your landscape. So with the color wheel, on it we have the warm colors on that yellow, orange, and red side. Maybe, you know, you want a palette in your yard of warm colors. So you're going to choose flowers that are in this color palette here. There are lots of yellows to choose from here in Florida. That's one way to go. Or you might be interested in cool colors. If you have a small garden space, the cool colors makes it look a little bit bigger. So that's going to be more on your blues and violets kind of side of the color wheel there. Or you can do complementary colors. If you look at this the wheel there, the colors that intersect, such as yellow and purple from top to bottom, or, you know, our classic green and red from Christmas, blue and orange, all these kind of intersect. So then you have, you know, something that looks nice to your eye with these colors that complement each other. I love the greens and the dark purples on that left there. It's one of my favorite combinations. Here's a tip that works for design. It also works for attracting wildlife. Now this is a very formal looking yard, and I don't want you to be intimidated by it. And what I'm just trying to show is plant a whole lot of the same plant always looks very professional. If you go to Disney or Epcot or, you know, a resort, any of those places, you're going to see this a lot. Now, I'm not asking you to buy that many roses or whatever that is. But just keep in mind, instead of planting, you know, this over here and that over there and that over there, if it's the same plant, put it together. That also, if they are butterfly plants, helps the butterflies find the plants better if you have more of them in one place. So not only does it have a good impact on a design aspect, it's also a great way to attract wildlife too. And here I have stagger the bloom times. The different bloomers you have in your yard, try to arrange it so that there's always something blooming if you want their, you know, if that's what you're looking for. So figure out when their blooming times are, so there's always some fun blooming happening in your yard. And it's not all about the blooms. Texture is a very important part of design as well. And in the plant world, the way we describe leaves are either coarse, medium, or fine. And what that means is coarse means big, like wool in your face, big. Medium means, medium. Fine means very small kind of leaves. So in this one picture here of all natives, the coarse would be the palmettos there, the mediums are the kuntis, and the fine is that yopon holly. And so not only do you have the three different textures going on, they're also, one of them is pointy, some of them are more lacy, kind of all works together there. And every single one of these are green. Do you see a flower anywhere? No, but it looks nice, doesn't it? So, line of sight works in a yard too. Now this photograph is kind of backwards, but it does demonstrate how these bricks are forcing your eye to go where the bricks are going. It's kind of just a design trick that you can utilize in your yard. If there's something specific you want the people to see, or you want them to be directed, have something like this brick path. It should, because while we're looking at it from here, it's just showing us the street, and we're like, that's not very exciting. But if we're standing on the street, it probably directs you right to the house. Or you can choose whatever, maybe you want them to go in a certain area of your yard. The line of sight is the viewer's eye movement or flow that is influenced by the arrangement of the plants and their borders. So we look at this, we walk up on it, and we are automatically drawn to where is that path going. Also, proportion is a thing in design. See, you might like the one on the right, but in reality, those trees are way out of proportion with that house, the scale of the house. Or some of them might be out of proportion with the scale of the yard too. So if you have a small yard, keep in mind, not only if you have a huge live oak or a huge cedar tree, it's going to take up the entire yard and probably cause root issues, the live oak would. It's also out of scale with what you have to work with. So keep that in mind as well. Okay, then there is the order in design. And in order, first we have balance. So these three pictures here, there's more things in my way than what you can see on the screen. We have symmetrical balance is that first picture on the top. And you see the little scale filled with the, looks like cannonballs, but it's equal, right? Because this is in somebody very deliberately, planted a very symmetrical landscape here. It evens out. 2 trees, 2 bushes, 2 bigger bushes, But it can also be attained in an asymmetrical way. If you look at the second one, there's only one big tree, but there's multiple smaller bushes, and they weigh the same per se. You see that scale with the cannonballs on it? There's more of them than there is of the tree, but your eye sees that and still feels like it's okay. It all kind of weighs out the same and evens out there. The bottom one is where it's totally uneven, and there's too much weight on the right side of that house, visual weight. So you look at it and you feel like you're going, whoa, So just some of these steps to keep in mind. Repetition. This is one of my favorites. It could be a neat way of bringing your yard together. See, they have repetition of these type of plants. It's red, white, and blue, what they're trying to accomplish here. But the red at the top keeps coming again, and then the blue and the white, and it keeps repeating itself. That's one of the elements that you can incorporate in your yard. There's also, you can repeat line or some kind of form. Here at the bottom they have lots of repeating, looks like maybe impatiens, repeating flax, and the repeating sagos. Or you can just have a repeating element that the same texture repeats itself, the same color repeats itself. And that all kind of brings a rhythm. To me, both of these very formal beds remind me kind of like of a musical scale, because you are, or not a musical scale, but maybe a musical song on a scale that, you know, shows just the same notes repeating each other again. Now let's talk about unity. Unity in design. Uh-oh. Okay, there's several different types of unity. There's unity by dominance, meaning there's a focal point there that everything is working towards. There's interconnection that's that features in what you're looking at blend together. Unity of three. I love this one. We're going to talk about that one when we get there. Doesn't have to be three. It should be unity of odd numbers. And unity by simplicity. But here's the dominance one. I wonder if I can just shrink that down. So in this top picture, how I look at this, obviously the gazebo is the dominating feature in what we are looking at, right? But everything else is working together to support it. I consider the gazebo the star of this show. And all the others are supporting actors which are working together to show you the gazebo. It all works together, even the hedges behind it that are used as screening. Even that tree, even though it's pretty tall, still having you look right at that gazebo. And all the color that comes together at the gazebo. I don't think it's on purpose, but even the way the lawn was mowed, kind of that line of sight draws your line right to that gazebo. See, everything's working together to show you one thing in that particular corner of that yard. And down at the bottom, that's just kind of a graph showing you can accomplish the same kind of thing, maybe with one specimen tree. Maybe it's a fountain, statue, something like that. Here's our unity of three. I think this is a really neat concept. What happens in design, even interior design as well as exterior, is if there's an odd number of things in a presentation, your human eye sees it as one unit. For some reason, if they're like at the top right, if there were 4 pots there, our eye would break that up into 2 different units. But because there's 3, we see it as 1. And you see what's going on here. There are 3 pots, all different sizes, but they are the same shape and they are the same color. So that brings the unity there. And one other little thing while we're here, I do have other classes on container gardening, but I also want to point out the design. They have a very classic thriller, filler, and spiller in this picture for container gardening. This is one of the classic ways that they do it. See, the thriller is that standing up purple houseplant, dragon something there. The filler is some of the darker purple, maybe sweet potato plant that they have in there. And then the spiller is your ivy that's spilling out. And you can do that with any plants, and you'll have, classic container gardening, how they do that. The thing on the bottom in this drawing, there are so many different things going on here that I want to point out to you that shows the unity. They call it the unity of 3. It is the unity of odd numbers. So what do we have going on. This is very attractive, isn't it? So what do we have going on? Well, I see three kind of large elements. First thing, the arbor, this trellis, and the tree. So 3 there. Also, how many pops of white do we have? Let's see, the arbor, 1, 2, 3, these plants, 4, those plants, 5, another odd number. How many little splashes of purple do we have going on? Well, obviously the tree, the red bud, 1, 2, 3, 4 up the trellis, and 5 more odd numbers. How many splashes of red? 1, 2, 3. And again, how many splashes of blue? How many blue pots? 1, 2, 3. And so that all works together because of those odd numbers working together, that we see a nice cohesive view there. Now the unity by simplicity. In this, I don't really know how to explain, except just that the bottom makes you feel better. The top is not very simple, and it looks like whatever plant they got, they just continue to keep planting it there without any, much thought, other than let's just put it here. The one on the bottom is much more planned out. You have one focal feature, that tree, but also it weighs. It weighs the same because it's smaller things on the right side, but there's more of them. And again, you have, what do you have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 little meatball bushes. Again, that odd number, it just makes you feel better. And just remember, less is more. We all tend to be hoarder culturalists. We like to hoard plants, but in all design, less is more. Go for that simplicity. Other tips for a chic yard are avoid the overcrowding of the plants. Here again, they put these big arborvitae right in front of the house, and it covers the house. So don't put it too close to the house, nor too close to each other. And I mentioned trying to have things that bloom at different times throughout the year, but also remember, don't choose your plants just because of the flowers. We focus so much on the flowers. And remember that texture that we talked about, that can be a really neat element too. So choose plants that look great with or without flowers. Evergreen, because green is a color too. Just remember, even though I said, try to have things that bloom at different times, don't overlook the green things and the cool leaf texture and, just different things that you can have going on. So also fill your yard up with evergreen things that provide really cool foliage all year long. And here it's just showing you, don't be afraid to go big. Don't go too big. Now I did mention, so it's a fine line, don't have trees or bushes swallow up your house. But in this space here, you might be tempted just to have those plants, those succulents they have on the ground, and maybe that cool pot. But that bigger plant filled the space in really well too. Don't be afraid to go kind of big and bold. Make use of hardscape. That's a part of your yard too. And by hardscape, I'm talking anything that's not a plant. So hardscape can be a bench, a chair, a table, a deck, a patio, a walkway, any of those pots, any of that. Make nice use of it in your yard as part of your decorating scheme of your yard. And one thing you can do right now without spending any money at all, and it'll make you feel so much better, is go out there, because we're so used to passing it every day, This bottom right corner was my porch. I'll admit it. So, you know, just cleaning up that clutter and sweeping it, and then going out and pulling some weeds, you haven't spent a dime, and you're going to feel a lot better towards going towards that shabby chic yard you're looking for. Now this is just the time for some oohs and ahs. We're almost right at an hour, so just showing you some pretty pictures that we like to ooh and ah over, where different people have tried different ways. I love this gaillardia down here. I'm going to be working on a little corner of my yard I've been talking about to make a wildlife area. So when I saw this picture, I was like, oh yeah, I got to get some gaillardia to go with it. It's not the right time of year, but eventually I'll get the gaillardia to go in there too. This is kind of like what I have in mind for my wildlife area that I want to use. Now that I don't have a bird bath yet, I'm going to be getting one, but it's right by my hose, the area is, and I have a scrubber. So mosquito control will be happy if you have a bird bath. Make sure you're going to swish it out with new water every 4 to 5 days and scrub along the edges too, so you're not breeding kind of wildlife you don't want to breed, such as mosquitoes. Here's another nice little shabby chic yard. That purple queen in the back, it can be, the University of Florida says the purple of this transcendentia plant is not one of the invasive ones. The regular green spreading kind, the inch plant, I'm avoiding its other name, as you can tell, so that can be invasive, but they say these purple ones aren't. But you might want to think carefully about what you put in there. I wouldn't have the gnomes, but to each their own. Lily doesn't like gnomes, they scare her. So here's another. This obviously is in the shade because it has that oak leaf hydrangea growing. Has several bird feeders here. That's a bird feeder hanging from the tree. It's just close to the person with the camera. It's not part of the house. But a neat little wildlife area in the shade that they've built around this scrub oak tree here. This may be the same yard, and here they're making use of containers quite well. Anything that holds dirt and water can be a container and work well for you. Just make sure that it can drain. This is a master gardener's yard. It's in a very shady, wet kind of area. Now he's very, very good at this shabby chic thing. And one of the things I know that Wynn does is a neat thing, such as if he had that table and chairs and he put them under some trees, what he'll do is take an old shrub that's dead. Maybe you had your irrigation on it and it's dead. It's dead, 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 dead. An old dead, dead, dead shrub, no leaves, no anything. Cleans it up, gets all the dirt and everything off of it. And first he'll string it with little white Christmas lights and then hang it from the trees that the little table is under and make an outside chandelier. Just, you know, there's a lot of cool ideas you can get out there. It's another that just isn't using too much turf and let what was already natural part of the yard be there. But here is showing it has some blooming, but it's got a lot of green and a lot of texture going on. And here we have more color in this one, and this one belongs to, she was an agent for the University of Florida in Pinellas County, and she's written books and things, but she's in a deed restricted community, and here she's showing you how you can have a Florida friendly yard within a deed restricted community. I don't know this person. This is just one of the Florida friendly landscaping pictures that they use a lot, but kind of really neat older home here, showing you different ways and the different repetitive. She's got repetition and rhythm going on in her yard. And there's the last one, just to make us feel happy in our wildflower little garden there. Oh, nope, wasn't the last one. Here's another that shows how even in, this is hard for me to tell whether it's an older community or a planned community made to look older. Regardless, it is, you know, think outside of the box. Doesn't have to be a square green box of grass. Think outside of that box. So the shabby tips I want you to remember, again, failing to plan is planting to fail. Buy plants for our area and for our season. Buy those healthy plants. Avoid invasive exotic plants. Don't overcrowd. That's going to be a temptation for us. Remember, less is more. Don't use those combo products from the store. Plant high and mow high. If you only follow those, you're going to go a long way towards a beautiful shabby chic yard. As far as the design, the chic look to it, stagger those blooming times, but remember that green is a color too. Odd numbers, odd groupings really please the eye. But remember that symmetry so that the plants and it all kind of looks the same and weighs the same. Planting the same plants together, as many of them as you are able, will look good in a design aspect and also be good for the wildlife. And again, mulch covers a multitude of sins. Even if you just went out there today, like I said, and cleaned up some clutter, pulled some weeds, got rid of some invasive exotics, and covered up in mulch, you'll be amazed at how great your yard looks. So go back to that simplicity and keep it clean, and it'll look fantastic. Here again is my email. So if you would like a PDF of this that has those pretty pictures and the information, here I am at Lillyb, Lillyb, at hernandocounty.us. It really is the best way to reach me in this age of COVID and me working from home. Next week, join us the same way that you did today. And we're going to be talking about weeds or wildflowers, an introduction to overlooked pollinator plants. I know I just told you to pull some weeds, but I'm very selective of, to me, a weed is a matter of opinion. So we will talk about that as well. I only have one more thing since I'm working from home and I have limited amount of coworkers. I want you to know it is one of my coworkers' birthday today, and Swanee is 8 years old today. So I guess we'll have an office party or something for her. And she's learned a lot about Florida-friendly landscaping in the past few months. All right, let's stop sharing. Let me see if we have much chat. Yes, Jim Mall absolutely does say that, Kathy Hill. Jim Mall in Pasco County says, plant it high and it won't die. Plant it low and it won't grow. Very good. I'm surprised I didn't say that. I usually do. That is Jim Mall's mantra for sure. And he was the one who I showed pulling the mulch away from that particular tree. He doesn't like me to say how old that picture is, but that aggravates him. But yes, I've learned a lot from him. And Iris wants to know how she can get rid of grass in an environmentally friendly way. Well, that depends. It depends on what kind of grass it is. Iris, probably the best thing to do would be to email me, because that might be, you know, more of a discussion, and that I want to bring Dr. Lester involved in as well, and you know how much grass we're talking about. Things such as that. You can cover, if it's a small area, you can cover it with an old piece of carpet, you know, or things like that. Mulch bags for a while. But you know, if you're talking about a large area, I need to know about that too. But where I plan on putting the wildlife garden is pretty much all crabgrass. So I'm just gonna wait till it's winter and it's gone anyway and kind of rake it all up. And Mikkel has a lot of seeding natives. How easy is it to dig them up and group? It depends on the native. So I can't, you know, really answer that. Again, if you email me, I can forward it to Rita, who is one of our native experts, and or you can, you know, contact her and find out which ones you're talking about, you know, and when they go to seed and how is the best way to plant them, because she spends a lot of time doing that. Okay, I think that is all of our chat today. I thank you all very much for joining me. This will be recorded, is being recorded. So therefore, around a little bit after 2 o'clock this afternoon, it should be available on Facebook, so you can tell your friends about it. Yes, thank you. Thank you all very, very much. I'm glad. Yeah, I figured you knew Rita Mikkel, so she's the best one to ask about propagating natives. All right, well, thank you all very much, and I hope to see you next week. And again, if you want to watch this again, or if you have friends who missed it, it should be on Facebook after 2. And if you would like a PDF, as always, please email me. All right, thank you, and have a very good day, everybody.